Let's talk about 2025, because that was the year everything changed. This wasn't just another year of, stolen passwords and data breaches. Nope. This was the year the digital world basically declared war on the physical one. The year that line between a cyber attack and actual real-world consequences just completely vanished. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That super familiar, frustrating feeling of a canceled flight, but the reason isn't bad weather or some mechanical problem. The reason is a deliberate, malicious attack happening maybe thousands of miles away, all from a keyboard. This is the new reality we're going to unpack right now.
For the longest time, we thought of cyber attacks as something that happens to data, right? Information gets snatched, accounts get compromised. But 2025, that marked a huge shift. We're talking about moving way beyond just spying and into an era where digital attacks cause real, tangible, physical chaos that you can literally see and feel for yourself.
Okay, so let's look at our first case study of this new reality. This happened back in September 2025. The target wasn't a government agency or a bank, but a really critical piece of software from a company called Collins Aerospace. It's the software that millions of us and thousands of airport workers rely on every single day just to check in for our flight. And while the consequences were immediate and just total chaos. At huge airports like Heathrow, Brussels, and Berlin, the entire digital check-in system, which is called Muse, just went dark. All of a sudden, these massive, modern airports were thrown back in time. You had staff handwriting boarding passes, these enormous lines snaking through the terminals, and flights were just stuck on the ground. Not because of any issue with the planes, but because the system to actually get people on the planes was completely paralyzed.
So why did this happen? What really changed here? Well, this attack wasn't random at all. It was actually part of a much bigger and honestly incredibly important strategic shift by state-sponsored groups. They were moving away from quiet spying towards loud, disruptive sabotage.
And to really get this shift, you've got to understand something called network edge devices. The easiest way to think about these is as the digital doors and windows to a company's entire network. We're talking about things like your Office VPN or the big routers that connect a whole company to the internet. And, just like real doors and windows, if they're left unlocked or installed wrong, they become a massive, massive vulnerability.
Now, this timeline, this is where it gets really interesting. For years, as you can see, Russian state groups were all about exploiting these super complex, unknown software flaws, what we call 0 days. But by 2025, they made a major pivot. They started going after the low-hanging fruit, those misconfigured edge devices. We saw this in a huge campaign against the Western energy sector, where they were basically just checking for unlocked digital doors into electric utilities.
And this quote from Amazon Threat Intelligence just nails the logic. Attackers basically realized, hey, why are we working so hard? We can get the same long-term access into critical infrastructure with way less effort and a much lower chance of getting caught. It's just simpler, quieter, and every bit as effective.
But here's where the story of 2025 gets even more complicated, because this was not a one-way street. While these Russian-linked groups were causing chaos in the West, Russia's own infrastructure became a huge target. Cyberspace turned into this incredibly volatile two-sided battlefield, and it stretched across a whole bunch of different industries. I mean, just look at this slide. It really shows the symmetry here, at least in the airline industry. On one side, you've got the attack on Collins Aerospace grounding flights in Europe. At the same time, a massive counterattack by pro-Ukrainian groups absolutely hammered Russia's national airline, Aeroflot. The target was the same, airline IT systems. And the impact was the same, paralyzed operations and canceled flights. It's almost a mirror image.
And the scale of that counterattack was just staggering. The pro-Ukrainian groups didn't just disrupt Aeroflot systems, they claimed they systematically dismantled them, destroying a reported 7,000 servers. 7,000! That's not just a temporary glitch, that's a deliberate attempt to cause long-term systemic damage.
And the battlefield wasn't limited to the skies. Not even close. This whole idea of physical disruption was being applied to all sorts of critical infrastructure. We saw attacks targeting Ukraine's agricultural sector to mess with grain shipments. And, as you see here, public water systems in both the United States and Poland found themselves right in the crosshairs.
So a group called Cyber Army of Russia _Reborn, which has links to Russia's GRU, that's their military intelligence, went after these water utilities. Their goal wasn't stealing data. No, their goal was to actually manipulate physical equipment to literally make water spill out of tanks and mess with the treatment process. This is the very definition of kinetic sabotage. So who's actually behind all this stuff? It's not just one single group. The landscape in 2025 was this really complex ecosystem of different Russian-linked organizations, and each one has its own playbook, its own targets, and its own motivations.
Okay, this table really breaks down the key players for us. Up top, you've got the big state-sponsored intelligence groups. You have APT-29, which is linked to Russia's SVR, their foreign intelligence service. Think of them as the classic spies. Then you have Sandworm from the GRU. That's military intelligence, and they're all about sabotage, like those attacks on Ukraine's grain sector. And then below them, you've got the financially motivated gangs, the ransomware and cybercrime crews. So a group like APT-29, also called Midnight Blizzard, is playing the long game. They're not trying to smash the door down. Their goal is to sneak inside sensitive networks, especially government cloud networks, and just stay there, totally undetected, for as long as they can, quietly gathering intelligence. On the flip side, you've got a group like Klopp, and their model is completely different. Their goal is to be loud, fast, and super disruptive. They used a major vulnerability in Oracle software to steal huge amounts of data from hundreds of companies all at once, and then, boom, they demanded a ransom. Another group, Lynx, did something similar, stealing sensitive data from a UK Ministry of Defense contractor. For them, it's all about the money. So when you put all of these different pieces together, the airport shutdowns, messing with water systems, the attacks on energy and agriculture, all these different motives, a really clear picture starts to emerge. The old lines we used to draw between digital and physical conflict or between spying and sabotage, they've completely broken down. Ultimately, if there is one single thing to take away from the chaos of 2025, it is this: a definitive, undeniable shift from cyber operations designed just to steal information to attacks designed to cause real physical effects. A move from espionage to what experts are now calling kinetic sabotage. And this whole process really follows 3 clear steps. First, the targets are the core systems that run our physical world: energy grids, water plants, shipping, farming. Second, the goal isn't just theft anymore, it's disruption. And finally, that boundary that we all thought existed between the digital world and the physical world, it's been completely erased.
And you better believe this massive escalation has been noticed at the highest levels. Governments are finally treating these attacks with the seriousness they deserve. This statement from the US Treasury, for example, shows this isn't just some tech problem for the IT department anymore. This is a core issue of national and economic security.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty profound and, frankly, unsettling question. In this new era of conflict, where a bug in an airline's check-in software or a water utilities control system can be used to cause mass disruption, where exactly is the front line? The answer, it seems, is everywhere.